Are you looking for more overall strength? Then today we're going to show you why it's so important to train your end ranges of motion and not only your mid ranges, and why you shouldn't do the same exercises over and over and over again. So enjoy this video.
So before we start, think about the strength curve of a muscle, any muscle. If it's your bicep, your hamstring muscles, think about what the strength curve will look like when you go full range of motion. And that's exactly what this diagram tries to show you. Think of any muscle you want, and for simplicity, let's think of a bicep or hamstring muscle, because then we can see it really clearly. This is the strength curve. We have the mid-range and we have the two end ranges. For the bicep or a bicep curl, the end range would be extension and flexion. Okay, so we have extension and flexion. We have mid-range when we go up and when we go down. So for a normal muscle, I'd say you're really weak or weaker at your end ranges and pretty strong at your mid ranges. So what most people do is, because we as humans want to go the path of least resistance, we train in our mid-range most of the time because it's easier for us. We feel stronger, we can use more weight where the ego comes in. So we use more weight and then we just train the mid-range of motion because then we feel like we're stronger. But what we neglect is training the end ranges. So a usual training setup would be, so we usually train this part of our muscle and feel really strong in that part. So when we do a bicep curl, instead of going full range of motion, we maybe start here and then we go like this. So then we train mid-range of motion and we feel strong, and we can get more weight over time because we neglect the end ranges. If we go full range of motion, we for sure have to use less weight. But what we forget is then when we train our end ranges of motion, we get stronger overall. We hit more tissue, more muscle tissue, and we strengthen these ranges, which simultaneously activates more muscle fibers. So the question is, why would we need to strengthen our end ranges, even if we recruit more muscle fibers, when we get stronger by only training the mid-range? And here comes the clue. When we only train the mid-range, this is our strongest point. We're weak in all other positions. All the positions we do not train, we're weak in them, and we don't want to be weak. We want to be strong. So let's assume we're strong in this position, and then something goes wrong during our training or whenever, and we get injured. We do not get injured in mid-range. We get injured at our end ranges. And that's why we want to train the end ranges as well. So we want to make sure that we train full range of motion. For something like a bicep curl, obviously there are exceptions. There are exceptions when half reps have their place, and that's fine. But in general, we want to make sure that we hit full range of motion. So we want to train that part as well. And with that, we want to flatten out this curve, not only to become stronger at our lift, but actually gain overall strength for all the movements that we pursue. So we do not only get stronger in a particular movement like the bicep curl or pull-up, but we actually make sure that we do not get injured or mitigate the injuries when something goes wrong.
So you might ask yourself how to flatten out this curve. I only do normal strength training. That's why I said it's not very efficient, not very good to train the same exercises over and over again, because you only train the same layers of tissue. Of course, if you do full range of motion, biceps curl, full range of motion, chin-ups or pull-ups, you will get in your current end ranges of motion. But if you increase and get better, you put more load and more load onto the lift or onto the chin-up or pull-up or whatever, right? So the chances of getting injured is very high, or it's getting higher. So we want to make damn sure to flatten out this curve with mobility training. This is where mobility training comes into play. It's end range strength training. We have more access to more tissue when we train our mobility at our end ranges of motion. So for all of you guys who are wondering, mobility training is only if I want to get more flexible or if I want to get in this or that pose. No, mobility training is for everyone. So for you as a bodybuilder, for you as a powerlifter, for you as a weightlifter, because we want to make sure you are strongest at your weak links, right? You get injured where you're the most weak, or at the weakest spot of your body, you will get injured in that certain lift you're doing. So we want to train mobility to have access to more tissue and to make sure we mitigate the injuries as much as we can, or to even prevent the injuries if possible. So at the beginning I said you shouldn't train the same exercises over and over again. Of course, we want to all get stronger in our particular exercises or lifts. It's okay if we train them over and over again, but don't forget to train your weak links and to train your end ranges of motion with other exercises, with mobility training, with auxiliary exercises that helps you get stronger in that particular lift, and it will help you to decrease the chance of injury or mitigate the chance of injuries. So that's why it's so important to train your mobility, and that's why we suggest you to train your mobility and to add the missing link into your training routine to get you on a higher level of performance and to get you stronger. So I hope this example with the strength curve chart was helpful for you to understand why mobility training is important and where mobility training has its place. It's because we want to gain more access to more tissue at our end ranges. We want to flatten out the curve, the strength curve, so if shit hits the fan, we're most likely to mitigate the injury or to prevent the injuries, and that's why it's so important to train your mid-ranges and your end ranges and your mid-ranges, of course. So if you like this video and you want more information about mobility training or strength training, then visit our website. The link is in the description below.